Welcome back, everybody. Okay, today's episode is the big day. We are going to mate the K24A2 bottom end that we went through and spent a couple episodes decarboning, cleaning up, checking the big end bearings on the rods, and just a general once over on the motor. We're going to take that bottom end and we're going to put our K20A2 head that we just finished putting. We got the head decked, hot tanked at a machine shop. We polished all the valves ourselves here, lapped all the valves to the head, and then put SuperTech valve train in. So we're going to take that head, put it on this block, and then we're going to get all the rocker assembly, the 06 TSX cams in, and get that all buttoned up by the end of today's episode. So hang in there. Hope you enjoy. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and clean out all of these head stud or head bolt holes. We're going to spray some brake clean down there, and I've got a brush, bristle brush, that we're going to run through each one of these. We'll roll the motor over, drain it out, blow it out with some air, and get those cleaned out because we are going to put ARP head studs in here, and we want to make sure that it's clean right down to the bottom. And then we'll also clean the block surface here one more time just to make sure it's good and clean and ready for the new head gasket, and then we'll get that on and start getting ready to drop the head on here. Okay, everybody, I've got my brake cleaner here that I'm going to use in these head stud holes. I've got my brush that I'm going to use, and I've got my safety glasses that I'm going to use because the brush is going to be spraying brake clean everywhere, and I'm sure everybody that works on cars has got brake clean in their eyes at one point in their life and never ever wants to do it again. Gloves on as well. You don't want to get brake clean on your hands. It can cause kidney issues and stuff like that. And some paper towel here as well. So let's get started. First things first, I'm going to take and spray some of this into the head stud holes. You don't need too much in there, just enough to kind of clean it a bit. As you can see, getting lots of crap out of there, so good thing we were doing this. Obviously more than I was anticipating because I'm not prepared for it. Okay. But I see the stuff that came out of there. There it is. Gross. Okay, so I'm going to take my air nozzle and a paper towel, just put it over top so it doesn't spray absolutely everywhere. Blast each one out. Alright, here's our ARP head stud set. That's the actual part number there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the assembly lube. We're going to pre-install all the studs into their holes here. We're going to take a little bit of assembly lube, squeeze it out, put it on the threads. We don't need too much on here, but we just want to have enough that they go in nice and tighten up okay. Okay, so all the head studs are in. As you saw, I used an Allen key just to get them tight, but they're not tight. They're just like Allen key on it and snugged up. I could probably still break most of these loose just with my fingers, so they're not overly tight. But so now we got that done, we just want to go through and make sure that any of the thread compound that was used on them that may have gotten on the surface of the block is cleaned off. There's a couple spots where it's transferred over. So we get that done, just making sure that everything is clean and ready to go. You don't have any debris in your cylinders, because our next step is going to be to put our head gasket on and then lower our head in place. Everything looks good. You hear these things are like tuning forks almost. Apparently that's the way you can tell if these head studs are still good or not as well, if you're going to reuse them. If they still sound like tuning forks, apparently they're good. And if they sound hollow or don't have that nice ring to them, they need to be replaced. I'm going to go get my head gasket. Okay, so I got my head gasket here. We got our studs in, the block's ready to go, clean the surface. The head is ready to go, clean the surface, got that all ready to go. Here's our head gasket. This is the Honda part number that you want to use when you do a K24, K20 Frank motor. The reason for this is the coolant holes or whatever for the jackets are in different spots, and you need this head gasket. I believe this is off of CRV, if I'm not mistaken, but the K24s, when you get them and you pull the head off, they've got a plastic diverter. Actually got it right here. They've got a coolant diverter in place somewhere around here, and you don't need it. You pull it out and you use this head gasket. So make sure this is the head gasket that you grab. Make sure before you put the head gasket and the head back on that you pull that coolant diverter, and then yeah, you're ready to go. Let's go ahead and get this open. We'll get it on the motor. Just a word of note, I'd also only use OEM head gaskets with these. I've heard of people trying to use kinetic head gaskets and the other popular aftermarket ones and having issues. So we want to take our head gasket and we want to line it up with the way we want to have this go on. So I believe we go that way. Should be right. Let's see if everything lines up. Looks pretty good. Got our oil drains lined up, oil feed lined up, all our coolant jackets are lined up. So that looks good. So this is in place and ready to go. We're going to torque the ARP, sorry, we're not going to torque, we're going to get the ARP washers and head stud nuts on here, and then we will start torquing those down. One thing you want to make sure you do is you get this assembly lube on the washer top and bottom, so it doesn't give you a false torque. Now that we have our washers in here, we'll go ahead and put some of this assembly lube on the head where the nut is going to go. Okay, so the socket that we need for these, this is a 1/2 inch 12 point. It's a deep, and it is actually like a 1/2 inch SAE.
Follow into beautiful places.
Alright everybody, welcome back. For you it's one awkward edit later. For me it's the next day. I ended up locating a 1/2 inch 12 point with a 3/8 for a 3/8 ratchet, so it fits on my snap-on torque wrench without an adapter. You can see I got it set to 30 foot-pounds for the first sequence. The way the K series is torqued, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's how we're going to do this. Okay, so I'll set you up and we'll get started here. Alright, there we go. So slight costume change, as you can see. It's later in the day now. It's actually at night. Kids are in bed. So we're ready to get the rocker assemblies on here now. Once we have that done, we will get the cams in place, cam caps in place, and then we can start getting the timing chain components in place and the motor in time. So let's get started on these rocker arm assemblies here. One thing before I put the rocker arm assemblies in is we want to take our lost motion assemblies, these little guys here, get them out of here, I'll show you. These guys, hey, no more valvetrain components on there. When you put the rocker arm assembly on, you have to put some Honda Bond along here as a seal, because the rear rocker arm cap sits down on here. So let me get some Honda Bond. You can also use Ultra Gray if you want. I just ended up using Honda Bond, so is what it is. So we're going to get that. I'm going to put it along here. It's easy and accessible right now. I'm going to put some assembly lube on our lost motion assemblies. Not that it's really necessary, but I figure everything's dry, so I'll make sure that these have got some lube on them, and we'll also make sure that the valves have got some lube on them as well. Now this is a royal pain in the ass every time I've come to do it, because the arm gets hooked on the lost motion spring, causing all sorts of issues, as you can see. It doesn't seem to matter if you tie them up or not, they get in the way. And you can see it's spring loaded as well, so joyous times. Oh, Jesus. this is. Sorry guys, I always hate doing this. It's the one part that sucks about these motors. Excuse my language, but this is such a pain in the ass. Jesus Christ. Come on, man. Never had this much problem with one before. Of course, I do it on camera. It's a fucking nightmare. Come on, you piece of shit. Fuck. Jesus, man. Fuck me. There's gonna be a lot of bleeping on this one because this is a fucking nightmare. So I'm not sure how much of that last bit I'm actually going to show you because this is a nightmare to do. I've done this like 5 times and I've never had a problem doing this, but for some reason this one and on camera is like the biggest cluster I've ever dealt with. So problem is as you can see, all of these rocker arms are all of a sudden wanting to go wherever the hell they want and push the whole rack apart, which I've never had a problem with before. Everything's always stayed in its place where it's supposed to be. But for some reason tonight it's not, and it is driving me absolutely bonkers trying to do that. I spent like 35 minutes out here just trying to line these up. And I'm getting short-tempered now, so yeah, I probably removed quite a bit of that last bit from the video because nobody wants to see that. Oh man, this nightmare is just getting worse and worse now. Holy man. So I'm going to try to put these old dipsticks in here to keep the rocker arms from falling down. I'm using an old dipstick as a bar to keep these things from flopping down into the way here, which is ridiculous, but that's all I have to work with. So, and now I got to make sure that none of the cups or springs flew out of here when I was fighting with it earlier. Looks like everything's in place for the most part. I got it down in place finally. Sorry guys, I try to keep these pretty accurate to show you how to do things, and I said I've done this 5 or 6 times in the past and didn't think this would be any big deal. I could just quickly show you how to do it, but apparently not. So I will edit most of the language out of it, but I will show you the struggle that I had with it so that I don't give a false impression that this is a walk in the park every time you go to do it. Because it absolutely is not. Just going to pound these down on the dowels. Alright, if you ever have this come apart, it goes together pretty easily, but the caps are marked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, front to back. And yeah. There we go. Okay, now I can take this dipstick out of here, hopefully, and everything just drops into place. There we go. So the rocker assembly is in. Next up is putting the cams on. Once we get the cams in, we'll put the caps on, get it torqued, get down, then we have to torque the gears on the cams down before we get the chain and all that stuff done, so we'll do that part next. Let me get some assembly lube on here first though, hold on. Actually, I'm just going to clean all these up because they've been out in the open for a while. So like I said in a previous episode, these are 06 and newer TSX cams. They are supposed to be the hot ticket for OEM cams in a K-series, so we're going to give them a shot. Any little bit helps. I don't have money for nice drag cartel cams or anything crazy like that. I wish I did, but this is a budget car, so budget has to be minded. Okay, so they're all clean now. Okay, so now we'll go over all of these and snug them down. The motor, I believe, is at top dead center. Let's double check that. The bolt heads down to the bridge here. I'm not actually clamping anything down. So if anybody wants to keyboard warrior me in the comments, go ahead, but I haven't used the impact to torque these. They will be torqued correctly in just a minute here, but I just wanted to head anybody off that was heading to the keyboard already to start freaking out about the way I'm doing this. I'm simply just getting them to seat. Not even seat, just getting the bolt closer so I don't sit there with a torque wrench for 5 minutes trying to take up all the slack. So anyways, if you'd like to comment down below, go right ahead. It will help me and traffic on my channel. Thank you very much. I should really clean these towers up before I put them in. Anywho, Okay, so now we're going to take our torque wrench. We are going to torque these. I'll look up the torque spec again. I just did them on my other motor though, which did not fight me at all going together, unlike this one, which has kind of been a nightmare tonight. So, I looked that up. I think it was 16 foot-pounds. I'll double check, and then we'll get back in here, get these all torqued down, and I'll probably call it a night. Alright, so I looked up the spec. It is 16 foot-pounds for the larger bolts. The smaller ones are 8. Let me get my torque wrench back down there. Hold on. Okay. And then the sequence is you start in the middle and you basically evenly work your way back out. So and yes, I'm following the manual's recommended torque sequence for this part. I'll fast forward this. I think it was this way first. That's right. So let me double check. Torque sequence checked and verified. So as you can tell, I did not tighten these up with the torque wrench, or sorry, with the impact wrench. I usually leave these ones off because they've got that bridge chain guide on the top there, but I'll put them on for the torquing sequence, then we'll take them off later to put the chain on. Okay, and the little ones here are 6 or 8. Maybe it was 8. I think it was 8. Probably just forgot to hit record on that last bit. These small 10 mil ones, there's one here and one on beside each cam angle sensor on the outside where the valve cover will go on the back. They are 8.7 foot-pounds. My torque wrench will do that, fine out of a torque. If not, pick your poison. 8 or 9 shouldn't really affect it, but I did torque those. So that's going to be it for me for tonight. I've had a couple frustrations out here tonight, and I don't like to continue working on things like this after that because it just seems to snowball. So I'm going to call it quits for the night. And I will be back out tomorrow night to get the rest of the front end of the motor put together here. So the issues getting the rocker assemblies on. I just find when I have issues like that, a few of them in a row, it's best just to call it quits for a while, cool off, and come back to it with a fresh head. So we're going to torque the tone rings on the back. These are an Allen key. I don't actually know what size Allen key they are. It's not marked on my thing, and it is a multi-adapter that I'm using, so it's not ideal, but it's all I have. So 29 foot-pounds is the spec, so we're going to grab a wrench to hold the cam first of all. 5/16 wrench to hold the cam to keep it from spinning. We don't want to bend any valves with turning it into pistons. So we're just going to go ahead and torque this up. There we go. Okay, those are torqued. Now we'll move on to, let's do the timing gears. We'll torque them on as well. These are 29, I think this is 53, and that's 86. So spin the motor around, or I'll just put the camera down that end and we'll get that one done as well. So let me get that set up. Okay, so the exhaust cam gear is a 14 mil and it's 51. Intake is 17 and it's 83. I think I got that right. 51. We'll start with 51 first. We'll double check before we go any further. See there, 51. Get our wrench on here. There we go. 51. Oh, that's super awkward. Okay, 83, 51. I'll show you actually what I did to hold the cam in place. So I'm taking my wrench on the cam. The cam's got these areas for a wrench. In this case, I got 15/16 on here. That's what I had that was close. And I wasn't able to get it all the way down because I didn't want the cam to turn and bend a valve. So I put a socket in between the valve cover mating surface and the wrench here to lock it in place at top dead center. And that worked great. Made it much, much easier to torque. So that's all that. Now what we're going to do next is we are going to look at getting our timing chains on and stuff. Okay, so here's our timing chain components. We've got a K24 timing chain. There's the part number there. K20 tensioner. The K20 Z3 upper chain guide, and then 2 new timing chain guides. The reason for doing these on my other motor, I didn't put new ones on my K20 when I redid it. But I'll show you a comparison of this one to the used one that I took off this motor. It's significantly worn and needed to be replaced, so maybe take a look at that. I don't have my old one here anywhere to compare, but what had happened is this is where the tensioner rides, and this plate here had a big divot worn in it. So I decided to replace with this one. It's 100 and some odd bucks, but I figured it was cheap insurance to make sure I don't have any issues with this. So yeah, we'll get these put on the car now. So OEM K24 timing chain. It's got a gold link down here for the just one of them. That's for the crank, and the upper for the cams has got 2. So the 2 gold links, you want to have the dot and the arrow on the cams right in between those. And same here. A2 upper timing chain guide. And here's the Z3. So you see the difference. This one's significantly bigger. The benefit of this one as well is when it's on here, it won't allow the chain to skip off the cams. So as you can see, it completely covers it, and it won't allow the chain to move around. So kind of generational upgrades that Honda did over the years from lessons learned, I guess. So I know this is a common upgrade on any motor getting rebuilt. So I like to paint mark all my hardware once I've got it torqued, as a reminder to myself that it's done. Okay, so on the crank here, you want to make sure that you get your oil pump chain on first because it's behind the timing chain. And then you see the gold link here. That needs to go directly over top of that tooth. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see here. See that tooth has got a little indent in it? So the chain needs to go over it like that. Oops, sorry. Chain needs to go over it like that to hold it in place. That means that the crank is in time with the cams that are set up on the gold teeth like so. And we are ready to go. We can just get the rest of the timing tensioner and stuff in here to hold this in place, and we're all set. So I'll get you set back up on a tripod and finish this up. A lot of the bolts out of these guides just to get the chain around at the bottom of the timing cog, but got it on there. Let's go ahead and tighten these up. Yeah, I'll tighten these all up, I'll get the tensioner in, and then I'll come back and I'll show you guys pulling the pin and making sure this is all set tight. Okay, so we've got, sorry about the audio tonight, guys. I realized that my lavalier mic was not working, so you're listening on the phone audio, I think. So if it's crappy, I apologize. I'm not going to go back and redo everything again just because my audio is messed up. So yeah, so I got all these torqued. These all torqued to 8.7 foot-pounds. This one and this one as well for the tensioner. So 8.7 on all these ones. This one I haven't torqued yet, I need to look it up. But we are ready to pull the pin. Everything's in time. We just have to tension the chain now. And to do that, we pull this pin out. I'm not going to do that right now though. It's in place enough that nothing's going to slip. So this is where we're going to leave it off tonight. We've got the long block all assembled now. What I'm going to do off camera is I'm going to just bolt the timing cover on here just to seal it up. Put a valve cover on it to cover it up as well. And I've got a spare oil pan that I'm going to put on as well. I want to try to seal the motor up a little bit because this is going to go on the shelf for a while. I've decided not to put this motor in right away. I've got some reasons for doing that. I might cover them later. I'm not sure, but I've got my reasons. I do very much so want to try this motor, but I think I'm going to run the first part of the season with the motor that's in the car now, and just try to get the rest of the car dialed in, get the aero sorted out, alignment dialed in, and get all that stuff done. Hopefully get the power steering done as well. And then I'll worry about this after, because this is just a drop in and go, drop in, retune and go. So I'm trying to limit the number of issues I make myself. So yeah, we'll come back in a minute here. All right, everybody. So that's it. We're done. We've got the timing chain all done. I am going to put a timing cover on here temporarily, a valve cover on here temporarily, and one of my spare oil pans on temporarily, just to seal this motor up. I'm not going to put the motor in right away. I want to run the first part of the season on the motor that I have in the car, the k20 A2. So we'll do that. This will get sealed up and put in my shelf with all my other engines, and we'll get this in probably in July, I think. So yeah, that's it for this one. Next episode, we are probably going to start, sorry, I should say, correct that. That completes the K20, K24 Frank build. The only other things that go on this are accessories that are in my car now. So this is basically a ready to go long block. Like I said, I'm going to seal it up and put it on the shelf for now. But we will get this motor into the car this season. And I will come back to it with more of this series once we get start putting it into the car and start going down the path of getting it tuned and stuff. So hope everyone liked this series of the engine build. I know it took forever. I think we're 4 months, five months for this build, even though we didn't actually build anything. We just cleaned up OEM pieces and put them in. But like I said at the beginning of this, my budget is tight, and I didn't want to overextend myself to build a motor, and I succeeded in not exceeding my budget, so that was great. All told into the motor, I think I'm about $900 Canadian into the motor. That's all new timing chain components, ARP head studs. Let's see, what else did I get? Head gasket, valve stem seals, all that kind of stuff. The bottom end cost me $400. So the K24 A2 bottom end cost me $400. The K20 A2 that I took the head off cost me $600, but I've still got the bottom end for that for another project, so that's good. And the 06 TSX cams cost me $150. So the SuperTech valvetrain is out of my other motor, so I'm not really adding that as a cost. If I was to, it's $250 that I had into those. So not a crazy expensive build, but something that should be fairly potent on track. Numbers, I'm not really too concerned about numbers. You see numbers fly around for these things all the time that are unbelievable. If I can be in the 210 to 225 range, I'd be super happy with this. So thanks for watching, everybody. I know this was a super long episode. I appreciate every single one of you that's made it to the end. I'll see you later. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.